All right, welcome to our weekly software supply chain security meeting. Aaron, it looks like you've got our first agenda item today.
Yes, and thank you for picking this up. So I have been working on the registry updates as they're related to enabling the signature information to make its way to the front end. I know there are a lot of different moving parts to this, and I've been kind of heads down in the registry work for like a good at least a couple months now. So I thought it would be a good chance here to kind of touch base and just see where we are in the different parts, and if there's any questions about where something is, so we're all kind of clear. I had uh, I had some discussions with the registry team, and I've gotten a lot of help from them on making sure that we're working on the right things. Actually, one of the parts that I had originally planned was enabling the OCI refers API on the registry side. And we had some back and forth about that, and we realized that that is not a necessary part of what we're working on at this time, because the what I've done so far is to get the subject digest, which is when a signature is pushed into the registry, the subject field is a digest reference to the actual image that that signature applies to. So we are working on exposing that information so we can push that information now to the registry. We are updating the tags API in the registry to expose that so that that can be used Rails side, and then we can use that to make the updates to the UI. That's my understanding so far. So I had a look back at the remaining issues that we had under that epic, which is the user experience for this. There's been a lot of other discussion, I'm sure. I've kind of been there's a like I said, it's a broad project, and I'm just trying to focus on getting my part of it done. But the other issues, and I had listed these out sometime last month in this epic, so we know what we're working on. There are after we've got the registry work done, which should be within like the next week or so. I'm looking at the next three that are on that list. The first one is the verification, which we kind of you mentioned that later, Sam, about about what needs to be done there. And like I said, it seems like it's a fairly uh, complex issue. I have a lot to catch up on how that's done. So yeah, I kind of was thinking that that might be a pretty heavy thing to solve at this time. Sorry, I'm watching you update the notes in the agenda while I'm talking through this. So the next couple of issues there were kind of taking that verification information from that process and then caching those results so that we don't have to keep looking them up. I don't know if these issues as they are kind of updating with what we expect in terms of getting the UI changes done. So I thought we might talk through that and just see what specifically we're looking at place so that we can get what needs to be delivered for 16.5 in terms of the front end. So
Sure.
any
So
thoughts
I
on that?
probably haven't done the best job at communicating this, but because the verification piece is effectively blocked right now, we're just deprioritizing that. And then I'm going to keep working on that separately. But I would expect it could be a full year before we're unblocked here. So for all intents and purposes, we're just going to move that to the backlog. And instead, for this epic, we should focus only on associating the container image with the signature and showing whether or not it is signed. But we're not going to make any attempt at verifying that signature right now. And that's because Sigstore doesn't have a Ruby library, and there's some pretty lengthy discussion there, but long story short, we're looking at trying to get the community to fund some Rust bindings for the SIG store library so that you can just call those Rust bindings from Ruby directly. And that way we won't have to maintain a whole separate Ruby SIG store library with its own set of bugs and vulnerabilities and maintenance and tech debt and everything that comes along with that. Um, so I have a proposal that I'm circulating right now with a bunch of people from all over. So we're talking about it with one of the Ruby Gems maintainers. We're talking about it with one of the homebrew maintainers because they have a vested interest in this as well. And then I've been talking about it with some people who might potentially fund the project. And we have a contractor potentially lined up to go and build the work if we can get the funding. So I'm just trying to connect all of these pieces. But even once that happens, it still is going to take time to build those Rust findings. And so that's why I say a year is because between all of the work to get the funding lined up, get the contractor hired, get on their schedule, and then actually do the engineering work, it's probably going to be a while. So don't worry about anything related to verification for now. The biggest thing that we're trying to solve for at the moment is the fact that in the UI, the signature shows up as a completely separate line item from the original container image. And short of download, like going on your local machine, pulling up a terminal, running Docker pull and pulling down all of those signature files, manually opening them up and inspecting them to try to cross correlate them, you have no idea which signature goes with which container image. And that's the biggest problem we're trying to solve at this point with the given scope. So if we can even just associate the two so that it's one line item and I don't have to go digging to figure out which signature it happens to be, that'll be enough to close this out for now.
Okay.
And,
And that, yeah,
and
that makes, I'm sorry, Nate, you interrupt. I
yeah,
didn't
sorry, I
mean
was
to
just
interrupt
going
you,
to say,
Nate.
so those three that you went through, the three issues you've gone through there, we've already moved them into backlog and blocked for now. But I don't think that there is any issues for the non-verification and just aligning those the signatures. So we might need to create some new issues for the Rails side to get that bit of work done so that we can then get into the front end work, which is relying on that.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, thank you for walking through that. I guess the next follow-up question I would have would be once the changes to the registry are complete, like I said, we're getting very close, and that we know we're kind of taking a different route than what was here before. It sounds like the only missing piece then is on the Rails end to have something there to turn that data into like some kind of association so that can be pulled from the front end. And I don't know that we really gotten any more specific than that. So I'm guessing we'll have to kind of work out some more detailed requirements on that side. I'm just thinking ahead at this point because I've got about another week or so of work on the registry. But if anyone has any thoughts on what I can provide to make that easier, I'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just what Nate said is just that we need to make sure that we're updating our APIs so that we get the information the front end needs. Because Daniel is currently blocked waiting on that, and I think he's done as much of the front end as he reasonably can until we start sending him actual data, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay. I have very little experience with the GitLab front end up to this point, so
yeah, so I just added a link to the conversation in the epic, which Daniel and Brian have been having around the required structure for the front end. So that'll give you a good idea on what is required on the Rails side. Obviously, you just need to create some whatever issues that you need to get that work done.
Yep. And then, of course, one image could have multiple signatures. So we should just make sure that ideally we'll send like an array to the front end of all the signatures that are there.
What information does the registry have about the signature? Like,
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just thinking like there's some sort of digest. Is that like some base 64 encoded data that we can decode for the user? Because basically I linked to the NPM provenance blog post, and in there you can see that they're showing stuff like they're basically showing some of the certificate extensions like source commit build file, and then they'll link to the transparency log. So I was wondering if we could do something similar to that.
I'm a lot less familiar with the specifics of that. So I understand that there are different ways implemented. What I've been working on is adding the part of the OCI spec that allows us to add a subject field to a manifest, which is basically you push an image to the registry, and then you push the separate manifest for the signature, and the subject field of that signature manifest points back to the original image. That is, as far as I know, is like specifically what information that we're going to be exposing in the tags API in the registry. So yeah, and I'll make sure that I'm right about this, but as far as I know, it's really just going to be exposing that digest that points back to the original image. So I'm assuming that from that we can form those associations that the front end will be able to use. If there's anything else specific in there, I'll make sure that I'm taking that into consideration.
So it basically tells us that there is a signature for this image. But
yes,
yeah, I think we should check on like if we can try to expose some details about like what signature is that. Like some way to basically get the certificate or link to the transparency log which shows details of the certificate would be nice.
That would be ideal. And especially if the user could just click a button in the UI and download the signature independently so that they could then go verify it on their own, that would be
well that is
an ideal
that, like,
workflow.
the actual signature object is stored in the registry. So and so I don't want to overpromise anything, but my understanding is that the registry will expose the signature itself, and any metadata will be in the manifest that is pushed along with the signature. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So on the UI side, this is the demo that Daniel put together. And obviously, if we're not verifying, we couldn't say if it was invalid or not. So we'd have to change this part on the front end. But basically, on up front, it would either be signed or it would not, right? And we would show that badge on the outset. And then if you go to expand it, you would get, it opens up and it shows you all of these details. And then if there's more than one signature, we would just list all of those out. And again, we couldn't validate it. So just either it's signed or not. So we'd probably just remove that badge there, but there would be this view details button. And when we created the original mocks, we didn't know what data you could or couldn't surface. So we just dropped stuff in, but presumably whatever data you can show about that cert, if there is like a base 64 string that you can decode for them, ideally we would just drop that in here. And ideally there'd be like a button somewhere in here too to download the signature so that they could go verify that independently. But any of that manifest data or metadata or anything that's there, ignore the actual text that's in here. It's just like for an example, but ideally we'd be able to show all of that here once they click on that details button.
And
Okay.
so
That's awesome.
and from a front end, back end, the back end would just pass whatever it has through and not try to decode or structure it. So then it makes it a lot easier for the rail side, right? And then the front end would do whatever it needs to on this.
Yeah, you could do that either way. I'm sure you could do the base 64 decoding on the front end if you wanted to.
Does that make it easier, Aaron?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get to. But sure, we'll have a lot more back and forth on the specifics of what needs to be exposed there. But this is a very good start, because we're definitely capable of doing this at this point.
Yeah, right now I think Daniel's just using all mocked backend data. So it might be helpful just to coordinate with him on the structure of the data that you'll be sending from the backend. If you can fit it to the schema and the format that he's already expecting, that's great. Or if you need to make changes, we just want to coordinate with Daniel.
Yes, yeah, that's perfect, and it's great that that's already worked out, because I think that from the point when the registry work is done, all that's kind of left is that bridge on the Rails back end, so we can kind of connect those two ends up. So
Cool. Okay, so then this gets us, and Allie, did you have anything else to discuss on your point?
No, nothing else from me. I think I missed Daniel's demo, so thanks for showing that. That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, no problem. I dropped a link to that in here too. All right, so then my last question is just to check in on expected timelines. Where does this put us? I think Daniel on the front end is nearly done as soon as we can get him the back end information. So where does this put us as far as our projected timeline for actually delivering this whole feature?
well, yeah,
he's not
sorry,
here, so I'm
yeah.
just gonna assume he would need like say a week, after you deliver
Yeah.
your part to finish things up and get it
Mhm.
merged in.
Yeah, well, that's another reason why I wanted to clarify this, because now that we kind of understand what's going on, I feel a lot more confident in getting this done within 16.5. I plan on getting the registry work done by the end of this week. The one issue that's been taking forever, it's just because of the it's a lot. I've been getting a lot of good comments, but that one's very close to getting through review and being merged. And then I have the next issue, which is exposing the referrer info in the tags API. I would expect I will have that done this week, and so from that point we'll just be piecing together the Rails backend work so that Daniel can finish what he's working on, and so I think that's pretty much it for this.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, who has the action item then to create those issues for the API changes that we need?
I guess that would be me. So I was I'll go ahead and I've been making comments in the Epic about kind of the existing issues. So I'll go ahead and I'll see how much sorry, I'm going to see how many issues we need to break that down into, and I'll get those up.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. And that sounds great. Well, I don't have anything else to discuss today then. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to bring up?
Just quickly, based on that time frame Aaron just went through, it probably will slip to 16.6. Just based on that. So just to make sure we're aware of that.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for that update. If we can, I understand that's understandable if we're setting that expectation. If there is any way that we can pull it into 16.5, that would really be ideal. So if there's any way I can help with that or anything that we need to do to help streamline that, if we have any ideas, let me know. I understand if it is going to be 16.6, but it would be ideal for a lot of reasons if there's any way we can pull that in.
Aaron, could we start on the rail side now without the registry?
I don't. I think it's going to depend on getting the updates made to the tags API, because I don't, at this point, I'm not exactly sure what kind of how that currently connects, because we're going to be adding information to that, and so like I'll have to take a look at how we're currently bridging that data into the rail side of things. So I think I would say that has to be in place first, but I will have a much better idea of the scope of that within the next like couple of days, because I'm going to start working on that issue probably right away.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we could have Brian help with it, or if we could, Allie, I don't know how much bandwidth you have. If you could help with it, maybe not, because you're technically allocated
Not
elsewhere,
much
but like
bandwidth at the
not
moment.
much. So yeah, I mean, if we could, if there is any way that having others come in and help would de-risk it for 16.5, I'm open to exploring our options there. Whether Charlie might be interested in coming and helping or somebody else. Even just Brian may be able to help with this as well. We could check on that too. So if there is any way to parallelize it or de-risk it or pull it in for 16.5, I would love to see that happen.
Okay.
But let's check in, I guess, after the end of this week, like you said, once you have a better idea of where things are at.
Yeah, I was just going to say I will update daily on where we are, if we find vectors where people can help in other areas, or we can split off some of this work. Yeah, I'll just keep throwing out anything that I see that might be helpful there.
Okay. Cool. That sounds great. Is there anything else to talk through today? Cool. That's all I've got. Thanks everybody for your time. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.